one of your post games, I think it was after game 3, you said Jimmy was really hard on you, and that was like you guys had like a meeting after game 2 or something in his room, and he was kind of going after you. What does it mean when you say Jimmy's being hard on you? Because Jimmy just seems to love talking to anybody. So that's
Yeah.
all.
So that actually got misreported as well. I don't know if you're
I love
seeing
this.
All right, we don't need to do an introduction. Everyone knows who he is. Let's just get right into it. Duncan, where are you first of all? Where are you right now?
I'm in the great state of New Hampshire, where I was
Nice.
born and raised, visiting my mother. My brother and my sister are around this area as well, so it's good to be back with some family.
Back home. Let's start here. Let's get serious for a second. Let's get sentimental. As you think back on the last 3+ months of your life, the whole experience, the run to the finals, the living in a bubble, just everything going on in the last 3 months, whether it was happening inside the bubble, outside the bubble, whatever. What is the state of your emotions right now as you sum up looking back on the last 3 months of your life?
Somewhat of a maybe corny answer, but I'm incredibly grateful just for the run that we had, the experiences, the fact that we were able to finish that season. I think back and obviously like that, the finish, the last 3 months will be the defining moments of this 2019-2020 season. I look back and I don't even remember like the first half of it, but it's really obviously going to be the bubble that's the most defining. But just a ton of great experiences. So I'm just very grateful and appreciative.
And Duncan, the last time we saw you, there was, basketball was still happening. We thought that we were going to have the NCAA tournament. We thought that the season was going to keep going as it is. Things changed. We had a pandemic hit, in case you didn't see. And then you go into a bubble. And I want to start just from the full bubble experience. So we call this the bubble bliss period. So when you and the Heat, you guys get right in the front end of the bubble. There's people shotgunning beers. There's JJ Redick doing podcasts. There's all these things going on. What the Heat seemed to kind of stay under the radar at the start of the bubble, and then at the end, you guys were, kind of the belle of the ball. So, what was that like at the start? Were you just laying low, hanging out, playing golf? What were you doing at the start of the bubble?
I mean, a lot of it was really working back into basketball shape. We had the individual workouts before we got there, but like,
so no fun and games with you guys. You guys are all about basketball. I like that.
I mean, I'll be honest, we were playing some golf, enjoying, the resources that the NBA and Disney provided. I think, Myers made maybe an appearance on social media, shotgunning a beer or two.
I said he had more fun than anyone else in the bubble. I felt like Myers, like every other day, it was like something coming out with Myers Leonard, just like, and then every time they showed him on the sidelines, he's just losing his mind, clapping. And I was like, that guy might be the number one, but like he wants to go back. Has he left the bubble yet? Do we have confirmation? Is he just try to move in there?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a team though, like I think what gave us an advantage, and we talked about this going in, is that we felt that whoever was going to be willing to embrace the bubble for what it was, would actually have a competitive advantage. So we really did just try to lock in on that. Obviously, there's 24 hours in a day, so you can only spend so much time watching film, working out, doing all these other things. So particularly early on in the bubble, I know guys were getting out and enjoying some of the activities at our disposal. By week 3 or 4, those were pretty much old news, and we were looking for new things to do. But at least in the very beginning, it was a good time.
I wanted to ask you that. I had that on my list of questions about the bubble experience. What was the dumbest, lamest thing that the NBA put together that was like, oh, the guys will love this, and then nobody did it, and like it does such a thing. I mean, there was the Dwight Howard DJ party where he was the only one there, I guess. But was there like anything else? Was there like, we're gonna set up like a big ping pong tournament for all the guys,
Right.
and y'all were just like, nah, we're good, thanks though?
I would probably say the biggest one was just the players' lounge in general. The hotel that we were out at, like the 16th floor, and it was really nice, honestly. Like it had a balcony and like a whole setup. They had like pool tables, ping pong tables. They brought in like TVs and PlayStations, all this stuff. And I think they had this vision of it just being this like, player safe haven where everyone would come and hang out. they had snacks up there. So I would go up there occasionally. I think maybe like 2 or 3 times I saw another human being up there. So eventually by the end of it, we had a group that we would order food. And, sometimes you just want like privacy away from the staff, away from everybody. We could always count on the players' lounge just being absolutely empty. So we would just go up there and just like hang out, and we would never run into anybody because no one was ever going to the players' lounge.
Did you ever think about using the snitch hotline? Was there ever a moment where you're like, that doesn't seem, I read the protocols before we got in here. That does not seem, you guys are playing doubles ping pong. That's not allowed. Now hang on a second.
Right. No, that I can't imagine that was used by anybody. Honestly.
I know, that was so wild when they announced that was happening. I was like, "What? How is this going to work? Like, what? There's no way they're going to keep that a secret if someone uses that. Like,
right.
That's going to get.
I mean, there were obviously a lot of jokes being made around like, reporting very valuable players to get them, whatever, quarantine for a few extra days. But like, I can't imagine anybody actually dialed that seriously to report like a mask violation or something, but I don't know.
And Duncan, I have to ask just about like during this whole period of time, like especially during the first 8 games before the playoffs started, there were so many moments on social media in the bubble, people talking about different things. My favorite happened to be involving you, and you guys were playing the Cavaliers, and there was a photo taken behind the coaching staff, and one of the coaches is Googling Duncan Robinson, Miami Heat. And I just wanted to like those types of moments. Do you see those on Twitter after the fact and you're like, this is amazing? Or are you trying to kind of like, do zero dark, 55, whatever you call it, and just kind of stay out of the way? Because Twitter was great early on. And that moment in particular was amazing.
Yeah. A lot of people sent me that one. But yeah, I to be honest, I didn't really know what to make of that. In terms of like,
I think it's
media,
flattering. I think it's
amazing.
Great.
Yeah.
Right. In terms of social media in general, like I'm not on Twitter actively. Like I don't have the app. I have like an account. Instagram, I tried to like dial back as much as possible. But the reality is like you're in a hotel, so there's not a lot going on. So it's so easy. I found myself doing this. Particularly early on, like it's so easy to get into that trap of just like taking out your phone and just scrolling. So eventually I just deleted the Instagram app from my phone just to kind of give me some clarity from that. But there's a ton I mean, obviously in the NBA season in general, there's a lot of idle time, but it takes it to a whole nother level, when you're in a bubble for 100 days or whatever it was.
It doesn't help too in terms of like people talking about you on social media. I guess I didn't help. By tweeting out your text. I certainly didn't help anything with the Duncan Robinson chat. How sick are you of people telling your story? Like, have you reached the point where you're like, all right, this isn't like, hopefully after this run now, I went to the finals, I scored 26 points in a finals game. I'm starting, like, we can be done with this, guys. We don't have to like
stop
every
bringing
time,
up Williams every time
every time I make a shot, you don't have to point out that I used to suck or whatever. Like, we don't need to do this.
Right. I'll say this. So when you tweeted that, that was probably the tweet that got sent to me more than any other, for the record. Like, people loved that one. And then the next day, we had finals availability, like media availability. And I'm like gearing up for my Zoom session. And I probably, had like a 10-minute session or whatever. 90% of the questions revolved around that tweet. They were just all that tweet. They were just like infatuated with this idea of like, that I was going to be a sport, that I was going to be them, that I was going to be on the other side.
Right. Yeah. Like you're one of us. Yeah.
Right.
You're
one of us. They started chanting.
The funny thing about it too is that like, and this isn't like, you didn't try to deceive, but like, because you just showed the text, is that it was very clearly for a class.
Yeah, it was for a class.
And it kind of had gotten taken out of context in some capacity. And then like on top of that, it was like this idea. I was just basically having like a safety net, you know what I mean? Like I wanted to reach out to you. It was just kind of made sense. And people were like, oh, like you were never going to play basketball again after Michigan. And then, you were going to go straight to try to work for the Ringer. And it was like, that really wasn't what was going to happen. There is some truth to the fact that I had absolutely zero certainty of like what was next. and that it was very realistic that at some point I would need to transition away from playing basketball. I didn't know if that was going to be, right after Michigan, or I figured I would have at least some opportunity to play overseas or something like that. And with that being said, like I had told you this, I was a big fan of some of the stuff, like some of your writing, and had followed you for a little while. Still am. Well, now I like to do it more as a friendship.
Okay.
Than a one-way fandom. But anyways, like, and then we just kind of dialed it up there for like 2 hours. And so I don't know. It's funny to look back for sure.
Back to the original question of what started us bringing this all up. Like, how are you sick of it? I know I kind of have an idea of what your answer is going to be, and I wish it wouldn't be this, but like at some point, Duncan, you got to be sick of it. Like at some point, it's no longer a compliment to be like, this guy sucked. He thought his career was over. He was. This is how bad Duncan Robinson.
You're helping
was.
the
And
narrative
they keep, like,
right now.
You know what I mean? Because like it's different circumstances, but like this is I dealt with that, like making my brand be a walk-on basketball player. I was like, this is funny, ha ha ha. And then it just got to the point where people would like introduce me like whatever on show. I'd come on some podcast and they're like, all right, our next guest sucks at basketball. He's the worst. And I'm like, God damn, like dial it back a little. So there's got to be some of that, right? You're kind of over it.
Yeah, I just think I would imagine the general public is probably just tired of hearing it. Like I've heard this like in broadcast every time I mention or every time I do anything. Like I could pick up a foul or like turn over the ball. It's like, and he started Division III. Didn't play a lot in high school. Blah, blah, the whole thing. They just like have the scripted monologue that they just fire off. I mean it's still nice to be talked about. So I don't want to sound like I'm like, above it or something, but I do hear what you're saying, and that I do hope at some point it can transition away from that and just being a hopefully, respectable NBA player. And that my work at that level and what I've been able to produce at that level just kind of speaks for itself.
And you talk about being a respectable NBA player. I want to get back to the basketball court, Duncan, because I want to talk about the officials and the referees. And the people don't really understand the fact that Scott Foster and the officials, they were in the bubble, obviously. They were, staying next to the media. They were playing pickleball. They were, all around you guys. And I just want to talk about that, those conversations, right? Because it feels like, you have to play the, nice to meet you, sir. Like, you kind of have to suck up and play politics a little bit with the officials. Did you do any of that? Because in the games, I saw plenty of times you were trying to talk to officials and they would just ignore you. I didn't like it, but I was like, they're just trying to send a message to Duncan. But maybe you have to play more politics outside of, the actual game, playing pickleball with them, whatever it takes. But what did you do with the officials?
It was usually just kind of a nod of like, respect. If we would
you got to do more than that. You got to go. You got to figure out their wives' names. You have to figure out their kids' names. That's the next step.
I think
that's what LeBron's doing.
Couldn't agree more. The only conversation that I actually had was, I think it was game, 3 or 4 of the finals. I thought I got fouled on a 3.
You did.
And there was like a huge, it was between myself and Eric. I can't even remember his last name. If he's listening, I apologize. But it was between myself and Eric. And in the game, like, it was probably the most worked up I've been this season, probably in my career at an official, outside of the time I got teed up because I got tangled up with Mo Wagner, which is its own thing. But anyways, Eric and I like had a moment where I, maybe mixed in an expletive and then said that I was a foul, and he gave me like a mean mug, and it was just kind of this awkward tension the rest of the game. Of course, the next day, that's the first person I see when I'm walking down to breakfast. He's walking the other way, and I had watched it and I'd realized that I was probably out of line and that I could see why he didn't call it a foul. And I just said to him, I was like, hey, Eric, I just want to let you know, man, I watched it. I apologize. I was probably out of line. And he actually appreciated it,
That's what
which
we're
is
talking
good.
about.
That's nice.
And then he had us for a later game and still didn't give me any calls. But it is what it is at that point.
Well, the Lakers wrote him a letter. So, I mean, you just saying hello. I mean, that wasn't good enough.
That was the theme of the finals to me, was you looking at the refs. Like I felt it was so sweet how naive you were. Like every time there's a foul called on you or there wasn't a call, like someone fouled you and they didn't call it, you would look at the refs like, how could this the system is letting me down. I don't understand. Like that was and it was like, oh, Duncan, oh, poor Duncan. Like you really think you're going to get these calls on this stage playing against LeBron?
So actually in like, I think it was game 2, I had a swipe and I shouldn't have done it. Like I shouldn't have done it at all. It's like transition. I should have like taken a foul at half court, but I waited and I like swiped at the ball, missed him entirely. LeBron, like didn't even make contact, not even close. They call foul. He gets an and 1. Then like game 6, the same thing. And in that game, like game 2, like you said, I was probably still naive at that point. I was like, I turned to the ref. I was like, I didn't even touch him. I tried to like make a case. Yeah. Game 6, the same thing happens. Don't even touch him. No contact. In fact, the foul was on somebody else. Like he got hit, but it wasn't me. And I was just like, I'm like, I'm not even going to go there. Like it's just not at this point. I'm realizing what it is, and it's just
you
whatever.
Found yourself. You never thought you'd get to this point, but you're like, man, I really wish Ted Valentine was calling this game. That would be, I can't believe I'm saying
to that point. I don't know if that'll ever be the case.
Oh man. Speaking of like LeBron and favoritism and all that kind of stuff, like obviously I imagine you're some sort of a fan of LeBron. Whether you're like a diehard fan growing up, you probably respected the guy at least as a basketball fan growing up. So how was it surreal in the moment to did you ever have moments or are you just fully locked in where, because like obviously throughout the series the Lakers tried to attack you defensively, and there would be moments where LeBron would come off a ball screen, clear everyone out. Now you are now finding yourself in a situation where you're guarding LeBron James one-on-one with very little help in the NBA Finals, and I'm guessing in that moment you don't really think about it too much. But as I'm watching it, I'm like, yeah, I'd be shitting my pants if I was talking right now.
Yeah, that was game 1 that we just decided to switch everything. And
yeah.
we quickly made that adjustment. So it happened less and less as the series went on. But like we had a big conversation as a team around avoiding those moments of like kind of the off factor.
Yeah.
Because we felt like that concedes a certain level of edge in that gives them an advantage the moment you're kind of like, oh wow, this is so-and-so on this stage. So we tried, there was like a big time effort beforehand to like just completely get rid of that mentality in its entirety. So I feel like once the game started, I was pretty good about just locking in at the task at hand. Looking back with a little more perspective, there's some of that just because like you said, I mean, grew up watching him. Obviously, I have a lot of respect for him as just a basketball player. But during the game, I tried my absolute hardest to avoid that.
You did play the Celtics, right? And then the picture goes around, the circulating picture of you at a Celtics playoff game, I think the year before or something like that. And then all these Celtics fans thought that you were going to help them somehow win this series because you were going to be embedded on the Heat. And one, I wanted to debunk that. And then two, if it was true, like, did you have feelings of like, man, I'm playing my favorite team? This is weird. Or was it not even close to that? Because that was just a question I had.
So I think that was Scalabrini, right? Yeah. So that, what's funny is that picture was actually
everyone was trying to go viral off you, Duncan. They were like, "What do I have?"
That picture was actually from after the game this year when I was on the Heat. It was just but with that being said, I was at a Celtics playoff game last year. So that did happen, but the picture was from a completely different event. But the storytelling was accurate. Just the picture is deceiving. So I wanted to get out and just clarify that.
No, that's great. We need that.
I don't even remember the second part of what you were asking.
I don't either, other than the fact that did you grow up a Celtics fan and like did that have something to do with you playing against them and caring about playing against the Celtics?
So I did grow up a Celtics fan. I didn't go to a lot of games or anything, but like I had, been and watched games at the Garden. Paul Pierce used to be my favorite player. Now, obviously, he has like a embedded rivalry with Miami between the D-Wade slander and everything. So like now I don't like Paul Pierce anymore. So that's that. And then the other side of it was during the season, we played the Celtics twice, both on back-to-backs. And both times Brad Stevens was absolutely ruthless in calling me into switches late in the game to get ISOs on me, like ruthless. So like I had developed this like I have a ton of respect for Coach Stevens and the whole organization, but like I had actually I've developed like a genuine dislike of the
How dare
Celtics
you?
in that like when we beat them when we beat them in the bubble before the playoffs, we played them in a seeding game. I was like so fired up for that game. And I hit a shot late and I was just like mouthing off. Like, and I don't really like talk that much, but that one was like, it had just the added chip because I had just, my childhood team that now I, for whatever reason, just really don't like at all. And then of course we run into them in the conference finals. We're able to take care of them, but still, like I said, ton of respect for them. And it's not like I hate them or anything, but there was just a little bit of added motivation.
Brad, you brought this upon yourself, Brad. That's that having you ISO'd on everyone. It's no wonder that you guys ended up knocking him out of the playoffs. He brought it upon himself. Speaking of that, like being ISO'd on defense, like being attacked on defense. Let's talk about like the more fun part of you playing, which is on offense. Obviously, I felt like throughout the bubble, Tate and I like talked about this on the show every so often. Just you have now reached a point, Duncan, where teams are keen on you defensively. Like I felt like we watched a lot of your games, and it got to a point where I would notice like you would cross half court and guys are picking you up immediately to the point that like maybe technically, I guess according to the experts, you're not the best player on the Heat. I don't know what they're saying that I'm not saying, but they say like Jimmy or Bam or something.
Sure is all right, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. But I told Tate, I was like, it really feels to me like there are some games where like a Brad Stevens, for example, calls timeout and he says, listen, let Jimmy Butler score 40. Let Bam, have his little turnaround jump shots in the paint if you want. But I will kill all of you if Duncan Robinson hits 7 threes on it. Like I will murder you all. It felt and like to me that was wild. Is that something that you obviously must have felt that like the more and more attention? It's kind of a double-edged sword because you start playing well, but then on the flip side, like the next game, guys are just like geared on you that much. That's got to suck though. Like guys picking you up at half court. Did you you ever talk to him? You're like, dude, I'm like the 3rd or 4th best player at best on this team. Like, come on, what are we doing?
Yeah. So I mean, first of all, it's a great sign of respect. So I hear what you're saying, and that it's like it can be annoying in that regard. Sometimes, what I'll do if they're like hugged up against me and we run a play where we know that's going to happen and we get Bam a lob, I'll tell my defender, I'll be like, you're really supposed to help right there. Like you're supposed to come off of it. You're supposed to go help. But like I said, it's really just like the ultimate sign of respect. I think a big part of it is that there's only so much you can do to mitigate like Jimmy and Bam's effectiveness in terms of like Jimmy's going to get to his spots. Bam's going to, impact the game in the way he does. Obviously there's such a big emphasis around shooting threes for NBA teams now. So, defensively it becomes how can we stop them from getting loose from three? And, I noticed it for sure in the playoffs. Obviously, the game slows down a little bit. Defense ramps up and there's just more attention to detail on, sets that maybe I was getting looks in during the regular season where it didn't happen in the playoffs. But at the same time, I'm really okay with just, attracting a defender that's just not going to leave me and having us play 4-on-4 because guarding Jimmy 5-on-5 is hard enough, but guarding him 4-on-4 in space is a nightmare. So I just kind of do my job and shoot it when I'm open, sometimes when I'm not. And it's kind of my little catch line that I've had. And I just do that. Yeah.
And I, the first 2 games in the series, Duncan, I mean, game 1 especially, all the people that had been ready to turn on, the hate towards you, right? They saw game 1 and they're like, see, Duncan Robinson, whatever. Game 2, sort of the same thing. But then game 3, you get back to just every time you catch the ball, it seems like you're going to shoot, right? You have the ultimate green light. And it's, purposeful at some level. We talked about that, the spacing of it all. But then you kind of got the confidence. And then by game 5, you go crazy. You have 26 points. And then game 6, KCP, you just mentioned the lob to Bam. Like KCP didn't even come off you for that lob. Like he just stayed on you in the corner for that 3 in that one moment. Then game 6, you guys are going back at going at it each other. And he says, you ain't nothing is what Chris Haynes reported. And then the official jumps in to him and says like KCP basically stopped talking mean to Duncan, try to get your back. And then KCP snitches on you and says that you're talking to him. And then I have to ask you, like, what were you saying to KCP to get him off of you? Because that really is like, he was like a gnat on you in game 6. Like he would not leave you alone. That's what Titus was saying. He was like, I'm just going to follow Duncan around the whole game.
Yeah. How that one started, I actually came in late. Like him and Jay Crowder were going at it. You know, saying whatever. I just caught like the very tail end of it. And I, you know, maybe not in these nice of terms. I basically just told KCP to be quiet, you know, to just to just stop. And then I don't.
Stop.
He's like,
Excuse me, sir.
fiddlesticks,
Sir?
guys, stop.
Sir, please stop.
And then I don't think he enjoyed the way in which I said it.
Yeah.
And then that, you know, then he kind of came at me and, you know, we went back and forth a little bit, but really it was actually him who started the, you know,
Okay.
taking it to that place.
On the record, he
Jet.
started it.
He started it.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't want to be that. I don't want to be the he
Yeah,
said,
no.
he
That's
said,
all right.
he, you know, whatever.
We all
But,
saw it. We all saw it. We know what happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanna expand on something Tate brought up, which is your kind of ups and downs throughout the finals, or like your aggressiveness, so to speak. Like in the first couple of games, it felt like you were feeling it out a little bit. And then we noticed that there seemed to be a conscious effort for you to shoot. As you said, you shoot when you're open and sometimes when you're not. It felt like, as someone who has no information, and this is just a guess, but just observing from the sideline, it felt like the coaching staff told you, like, we have to like, please shoot the ball. Even if you miss, we want you to keep shooting because we need you to be a threat out there. First of all, is that true? Is there like a conscious thing of like, just get your shots up, they're going to start falling, and even if they don't, like, we need you to be a threat and get shots up? And secondly, goddamn, like that really is like the ultimate green light. If you're being told, like, even if you miss, keep shooting at all times, keep shooting. What is that like to have that green light, Duncan? Like that is something we all dream about. Every basketball player on earth wants that. You seem to be one of the few guys that has it. Are you're not taking it for granted? I hope you understand how blessed you are.
Definitely not. Definitely not. Definitely not taking it for granted. I'll say this. I mean, that was the messaging all season. So it's not like we got to the finals and then all of a sudden it was, now you got to shoot every time. They've been telling me that from the jump, especially Coach Spo. I mean, he was telling me to do that when I wasn't making anything last year, preseason, whatever. Like he was still telling me to be aggressive and shoot everything. So, you know, truthfully, like I was very disappointed in games 1 and 2 for myself personally, just because I felt that I didn't have that same mentality that I'd had for much of the season. I didn't feel like I was being who I had been, particularly, you know, when I was at my best. A lot of it is just that having that mentality. And, you know, I think honestly, like probably a part of it was just kind of nerves and getting comfortable. And, you know, and at that stage also everything's ramped up. You know, the defense, their focus is going to be more. Everything's going to be more. So it required me to bring more as well. And I think game 3, I really didn't even make that many shots, but I think game 3, I at least got back to being who I was from an aggressive standpoint. And then from there, like the beautiful thing is like, they really don't worry about makes and misses with me. Like the conversation is all around attempts. Like it's not, we need you to make 5 threes tonight. No, it's, we need you to shoot 10. And like, we need you to shoot 11, 12. And that's just, when you focus on that, you know, the results tend to take care of themselves.
Right. So do you as you assess, like, getting to this point in your career where coaches are telling you that, and you know, we talked about your story ad nauseum. Do you like stop and think about like the fit at Miami, and maybe you're not that you're lucky to be at Miami, but like, do you believe that if it wasn't Miami, if it was the Cleveland Cavaliers that you ended up, you know, playing summer league for, like the same sort of messaging would be delivered to you? Or is it, I guess what I'm saying is, like, it does feel like a lot of guys, like, fit matters to these guys. Like, do you think your career would play out if you're playing for any other team, or is it something about Miami sees the guys saw something in you? And
sure, it certainly wouldn't be guaranteed anywhere else. You know, I don't want to say that it definitely wouldn't play out this way, because you know, I think I obviously played my part in it as well.
Sure,
but
of course.
So much of every you know, level of basketball, but I think particularly as you move up, everybody's so talented, whether it be college or the NBA. So much of it is just situation and opportunity. And I think what's really unique about Miami is that they gave an undrafted guy who had from a personal statistic standpoint, pretty mediocre college career, an incredible opportunity to just be the best version of myself and to fly off screens and just let it fly. So I don't think there are a lot of organizations that would do that. Like I just don't. I think, guys would be caught up in, playing their picks and playing their money and playing the guys they've invested in. Whereas like I was on a two-way contract, non-guaranteed or whatever, and he was rolling me out there asking me to shoot 10 threes a game, which is like crazy to think. That's why I do feel incredibly fortunate that I ended up in a place like Miami. And in many ways, it's like built the foundation for my career. I mean, I love it there and I want to be there for the foreseeable future for sure. But we'll see, obviously, with all that. So.
While we're on the topic of the Heat culture, last time you were on the show was right after the 3-point contest when you were the black sheep of the Heat family, so to speak. You were the guy. Yeah. We were talking about how you've lost the locker room, Duncan. The entire franchise did not respect you, and as we stand now, have you gained back the respect of of your coaches? And what I mean, I think, is Pat Riley and Dwayne Wade. Really, it was Dwayne Wade, wasn't it? D Wade that came out the most, like the most vote. Do you have Dwayne Wade's respect? I remember at the time, did Iggy get traded? Like he just signed with you guys, and I remember asking you something about that. Yeah. And that situation seemed a little dicey now. Where do you stand with Iguodala, Dwayne Wade, Pat Riley now that you've had the run you've had?
I hope I'm in better standing. I will say, the All-Star performance, like when we got back, like that first team meeting, we were going through everything, and coach of course takes Segos, and I just really want to congratulate, first Kendrick and Tyler, Bam and Jimmy for being, but then of course, Bam taking home hardware, Derek taking home hardware, and Duncan. He didn't want to make me feel this like in Duncan, just pretty special that you're able to be there. And I'm like, oh, like really? That's what we're doing now? We're just like handing out participation trophies, happy to be there. But I think since that point, I think that it's been a work in progress, and I'm continuing to regain respect around the Heat organization. But it probably won't be completely fixed until I get back there and have a better showing.
Yeah.
And you said one of your post games, I think it was after game 3, you said Jimmy was really hard on you, and that was like you guys had like a meeting after game 2 or something in his room, and he was kind of going after you. But as you're saying this, you're saying it like, I enjoy this, like I enjoy him getting on me because that means he expects this out of me. Can you just talk about that mentality? Because like we've been talking about some other situations with coaches being tough, quote unquote, but like there's a certain level of that, and it just seems like Jimmy loves you like a little brother. And what does it mean when you say Jimmy's being hard on you? Because Jimmy just seems to love talking to anybody. So that's
so that actually got misreported as well. I don't know if you're seeing it.
Duncan, we need you. See, I think what we're learning is we need you to become.
You should be in the media. Yeah,
you got to clean up. You got to clean up the field of journalism here.
You're the white knight.
Yeah. So that. I think you're probably noticing a trend here that, things are consistently misreported. So with that being said, certainly don't believe everything that you read or see. But yeah, so that was after game 2. I think what was reported is that, like, I don't know, I went into his room and he watched film with me or something.
Yeah,
and like
exactly.
Was like, you need to be better here, and here. It wasn't that at all. I was sitting in my room watching the game, rewatching the game, and he just knocked on my door and was like, yo, come on. And I was like, no, I don't want to right now. And I'm watching this. I was in like I was pissed off in a dark place, basically. Yeah. And I was like, no, come on. So we just went into his room. It was him, myself, and his trainer, who, he's really close with. And we just like chilled and just like chopped it up. It was nothing to do with the finals, really. It was nothing to do with really particularly like Heat basketball. Basically all he said in regards to that was like, we need you to be aggressive. We need you to shoot. And then after we did that box was checked. And then we just like basically just talked about whatever. But I mean, that's like Jimmy in a nutshell, in that, he's going to get on you probably more so in public places, in that, like, if I'm messing up in practice or messing up in a game, like, he's going to make a scene about that. But he's, it's behind the scenes that he'll put his arm around you and let you know that he actually like cares about you. So that meant a ton to me, obviously, because, to have your best players support like that. And like, here I'm playing my first playoff run, and he's like, dude, shoot the ball every time. Like, this is who you have to be And now, let's get back to talking about whatever. Like, it was just that. And after that, I was just able to have more clarity around everything, and to know that I had his support meant a lot.
So it was just the most boring meeting ever. And that's what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean,
it
yeah,
was just like
he was not breaking down tape, being like, Duncan, this is where you got to shoot right here on this spot.
No, it wasn't that. But honestly, like I feel that's more impactful than like saying, because I can watch the game and see, I should have shot that. Like he knows that. He doesn't need to tell me that. Like, more so, it was just about like, dude, just like be yourself. Like, go out there and be aggressive, be who you are, be who you've been that got us here. And everything will take care of itself. And just to have that vote of confidence obviously meant a lot.
I want to ask you about playing in the bubble, just from like a basketball perspective, playing on that court, in that arena, in that environment. Did you feel like first of all, was it easier to shoot, harder to shoot? No, nothing. Like, did you notice a difference in that at all?
Not really different. I guess maybe a little bit easier. I think people made a probably too big of a deal out of that.
Yeah. Well, we had to come up with something, Duncan. I mean, it's in our contracts to deliver content. Like, we had to. I mean,
we had to make up some reason why it's a little bit different.
Yeah, you want to do 20 minutes on it being easier to shoot? I think so. Yeah, that'll check.
Tight rims, soft rims, shooters.
What about like the lack of fans? Did that feel weird? Did it make it? Was it like back at AAU environment? That kind of stuff. Just
I mean, the first game was weird.
The
second game was kind of weird, but then after that it just became normal. I think probably the guys that were the most taken back by it was, like, I was talking to Andre about it. He played in packed out gyms every single night when he was with the Warriors, because whether they were home or on the road, it was full. So for him, like, it's been legitimately 15 years since he's played in an empty gym. I was playing in Sioux Falls and Prescott Valley, Arizona last year, so it's like it's kind of more.
I remember this quote you had. I remember this quote you had going into the bubble, where you said, "I'm used to playing in empty." Was that a shot at Michigan fans? Because that's how I took it. I took that as a shot at. I was like, man, I like that. Duncan's taking the gloves off and he's just calling out Chrysler Arena.
No, not a shot. We were well supported at Michigan.
I know.
So no shot at Michigan. If any fan base I'd take a shot at, whenever we played at Ohio State, I felt like that place was empty.
Yeah,
seriously.
Yeah, the shot.
Granted, it's 17,000, 18,000, so it's bigger, but still, the fact like they couldn't fill that out for a rivalry game was just disappointing, to say the least.
I have no rebuttal, Duncan.
I have one stat for you that I thought was impressive. This is from Tim Reynolds, AP's Tim Reynolds. He said, including the playoffs, Duncan Robinson made 332 three-pointers this season on 43.6% shooting. The only others to do that and shoot that many: Stephen Curry, 2014-15. Stephen Curry, 2015-16, the same year that he was unanimous MVP. Just wanted to point that stat out for the friends of the program, because that is unbelievable, Duncan Robinson.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
I don't really believe it's true. Like, I haven't looked up the numbers myself, but that's wild.
Which one of the Splash Brothers are you more confident you're a better shooter than? Let's get some headline buzz here, Duncan. I saw someone, who was it that said you're better than Clay, you're better catch and shooter than Clay. And then, like, I love this too, because you have like been inserted into, like, people are starting to hate you because, like, other people are like, yeah, I kind of think Duncan Robinson's better than Clay. And then like people that love Klay Thompson now all of a sudden are put in a position where they have to hate you. And you're just sitting there like, I didn't say anything. I was just like, what did I do to deserve this?
I don't need any part of those comparisons at this point in my career.
Yeah.
I've basically done it for one season, whereas those guys have done it year in and year out. So I don't even think that I'm like eligible to be having those conversations yet.
That's a good answer. Yeah, because you are better. Because we know you're better, but you're just not eligible. That's a good.
So down the line, if I'm able to continue to do this, which hopefully I am, and I think I'll be able to, for the next whatever X amount of years, then we can begin to, have
How many times has Steph had a dunk tip in an NBA Finals game? I'd just like to point that out.
You know what, man? I want to say this. I really appreciate you acknowledging that as a dunk, because there's been a split.
The haters were saying it wasn't a dunk. Yeah.
Some people were trying to say that it wasn't, and I'd like to clarify that I absolutely did touch the rim with both my hands, guided the ball into the basket, and touched the rim with both hands. I didn't pull down on the rim, but that's because
Didn't want to get teed up. Yeah, didn't want to get teed up.
Yeah. You're respecting the game. You didn't want to showboat. You didn't want to showboat.
Right. Exactly.
I had this written down. I didn't realize this. This is now that you've had some time to digest the finals loss. A great run, obviously. You came up just short, 2 games short, basically. Obviously, we jumped on your bandwagon right before your senior year at Michigan, where you lost in the national championship there. And then you lost, Duncan. You've also lost the Division III national championship. So now that the emotions have calmed down a little bit, which one, as you look back on them, power rank those from like the one that will haunt you when you're 90 years old and you're like, man, I should have won that. I can't believe we let that opportunity slip through our hands.
You may not expect this answer, but I'll say that the Division III one was particularly tough because we should have won that game.
Yeah.
Like it was a buzzer beater. Like we scored to go ahead with 3 seconds left. So
really?
I'm having these emotions of we just won. Like I missed like a little like floater runner with 5 seconds and our big man tipped it in. So we're up 1 point with 3.5. Kid goes the length of the floor and lays it in and 1 at the buzzer.
Oh my God. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh God. Well, then that's definitely the answer. That's definitely because and then Villanova wiped the floor with you guys, and
Villanova. The one reason why Villanova, well, not the one, but one of the big reasons why Villanova kills me is that I was just a complete no-show. So like that, really bothers me.
It wouldn't have mattered. Duncan, it wouldn't have mattered.
They were
Duncan. It's not your fault.
It's not your fault, Duncan. It's not your fault. It wouldn't matter.
I mean, and that game wasn't particularly like close.
And
then the other one, we lost in 6. So like it's not like we lost game 7 down the line. Like these 2 losses, the NBA Finals one. I think as I move forward in my career, I'll realize like how special it was to get to that point, and I'll realize how big of a missed opportunity it was. I realize that now. I don't want to get that misconstrued, but I think as you go on in your career, like I was talking about with Solomon Hill the other day about this, like, people just think because you go your second year, like you get spoiled, like, oh, we'll be back. But like it just doesn't work that way. And I know that now, but I think you need to like learn that through going through it as well. So in terms of like the most gut wrenching, I still think it's probably the Division III.
That makes total sense. I didn't know that context.
I appreciate you bringing up the fact that I've lost it.
I was going to say, what a question.
It's not like I wasn't well aware of that fact, but I appreciate that thing.
Duncan, don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened. You know how many guys would love to just be in your shoes and I don't know. Why did
26 points in game 5?
Why did I bring that question?
That's all I got to do is bring it up. 26
points. But do you understand how less cool it is that I've played in all 3 versus won all 3? Like, played in all 3 is just like significantly.
It's a participation trophy. It's just like All-Star Weekend all over again.
Because of course, as soon as you say, not that I go around saying this, but like as soon as anyone says, "Oh yeah, he played in all 3," the answer is, "All right, well, did he win any of them?" And it's like, oh no, he lost all 3, and that's like, he's just like a notorious for coming in second place.
I think this is good. Because I think this is going to be fuel for your hate. I think you've really arrived as an NBA star when you have a contingent of haters at all times that just hate you for anything you do. And I think this adds some fuel to the haters, and you can like get the LeBron treatment where you're playing out of your mind, but everyone's like, yeah, but he's. I don't know. I'm trying to spin it as though this it wasn't. I'm trying to make it like, why would I ask you this? Give us and I swear we're going to let you go, but give us the scouting report for the Pentagon. You mentioned earlier you played in Sioux Falls because I don't know if you're aware of this. There's been a lot of announcements during trying to figure out what the college basketball season is going to look like, that there's going to be a lot of games played in the Pentagon. They moved the Battle for Atlantis up to the Pentagon. Meanwhile, Gonzaga, who might be the #1 team in the country, is going to play Iowa.
Look at that reaction. Yeah, imagine.
Wait, they moved the battle.
Yeah, right.
to Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
To Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
And
yeah.
Duke dropped out. Duke said
Duke
no.
dropped out. When that happened, Duke dropped out. They're like, we don't want any
Of
part
course
of this.
they did. Why would they go up there?
Yeah. Ohio State's in it. Who else? Like Memphis is in it. West Virginia's in it. Dayton's in it. But then also Gonzaga and Iowa are playing a one-off game, and those two teams could be top 5 teams when they play in December.
Iowa's top 5.
They're going to be pretty good. Yeah, they're good. They don't play any defense though, so they're going to lose some games. But my question is, like, as college basketball people, we're going to be watching a lot of like big time games in Sioux Falls. Do you have any reports on like the rims? Or should we expect high scoring games? Do we have
absolutely?
What's the vibe?
Probably in my entire career, it's my favorite gym to shoot in.
Oh,
seriously, my entire career, favorite gym.
Wow.
To shoot in.
That Gonzaga game is going to be nuts. Gonzaga, Iowa, like they might be the two best offenses, honestly, in college basketball.
There you go.
Wow. All right, hammer the over.
Threes, for any sort of prop bet 3, whatever. Hammer the over.
I love that.
I think I'm convinced the rims are like maybe an inch short. So I think, which I think helps shooting a lot of times. The depth perception is great because it's pushed right up against it.
Nice. This is the analysis we need. This is the analysis.
Big time shooting gym. Big time.
Love it. Anything else, Tate?
No, I think this has been great.
We let him go.
Yeah, Duncan Robinson, friend of the program. Thanks for coming on.
Original friend of the program.
For the best access, perspective, and personalities in all of sports, follow us at Fox Sports on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.